All right. Today's a sad day. There's no other way to put it. Dominic Thiem has announced that 2024 will be his last season on tour. He's retiring, and he said it's a very sad but very beautiful announcement that he made. So I encourage you to go watch it on anywhere that it's posted. But I'm going to give my reaction to it now and give my thoughts on why it's sad, why it's understandable, look at his best memories on tour, and I'm going to talk about, is Dominic Thiem a what if player? What if he didn't get injured? Or is it he reached his peak and that's all he could do? Let's get into it. This is The Slice. Here you go. Well, I'm going to try and get through this video without getting emotional because it's crazy to see these guys go out and retire. You saw Federer retire. This seems a lot different. This is a thing where it does not feel like it should happen this way. You know, just comparing to Federer's retirement, obviously Federer had won 20 majors. He's done everything there is to do in tennis. And we feel like you had squeezed everything out of that rock that you could. And with Dominic Thiem, it just unfortunately doesn't feel like that. This feels premature. It feels like, and in reality, his career has been cut short by this wrist injury that he cannot get over. And it turns out that it's just been too much for him, and he's just going to call it a career at the end of this season. I think people, and myself too, an optimist, you think that they'll just keep pushing forever, and it's week in, week out, they can just keep going, because we kind of only see them when they're playing. We're not with them day in and day out, where they used to be at a level. This Dominic Thiem used to be at the winning the US Open, beating all the big three, playing amazing tennis, to now where he can't win back-to-back matches at ATP Tour level. He's losing in challengers all the time, and his wrist just won't allow him to play the way he used to play. So it's sad. It's sad. It feels like this is an unfair part of the world, but the world isn't fair. We understand that. But Dominic Thiem having to retire at the age of 30 is tough. And this is, to me, it's just sad. You can tell in the video that he made today, he was, he kept it together, unlike Federer would have. But, he said it's a very important, a very sad, and a very beautiful message. He's always been a guy that kind of seems to look at the whole picture and, have a deeper understanding of life. But it's obviously not easy for him to call it a career when it feels like so much was left on the table. So it's understandable. It's understandable that he is doing this, because having been on tour myself as a journalist, going week in, week out, I saw kind of a bit of the grind and what it can be like and how lonely it can be on tour, and how much of it seems awesome. Like you're traveling the world, you're playing tennis. And I think it is awesome. It is for sure awesome. If things are going well for you, you're making money like he was for the majority of his career. He was playing well, winning tons, working super hard. But, in reality, you're touring the world playing tennis for a living. That's amazing. But when the living's, and this for him, it's not really the case, but, just being on tour, I've seen the grind. And I was with Dominic Thiem multiple times. And this is from at Gstaad, which is in Switzerland. Here's I actually have my Geneva Gonnet Open hat. He was also there when I was there at that tournament. And I saw him play, and he had a good tournament here in Gstaad, actually. Made it to the semifinal, and I believe he lost to Casper Ruud or Berrettini, I forget who. But that was right when he was kind of making his comeback. His wrist had gotten back to the place where he could play consistently, and it felt like he was getting better. But that was 2022 July. It's almost 2 years later, and he really hasn't been able to make any progress in his ranking or his level really since then. Slow improvements, but too slow for him. And I think he feels like he's not going to get back to the level that he was at. And that's why he's called it quits. And I understand that. I've heard from many other players like Milos Raonic, other players who have struggled with injury. they wouldn't keep playing if they didn't feel like they could get back to a level that they could compete at. Rafa Nadal, he said the same things. And they don't want to just be out on tour losing week in, week out, like Dominic Thiem has been. So it's understandable. It's understandable. The question of what if. I've seen the debate on Twitter. I've seen people talking about, is he a what if player or is he not a what if player? Is he just a player that kind of got a ton out of his career, probably reached the heights that he could reach, but was injured and, kind of came down? Or is he a player like Del Potro or these other players who got injured and weren't able to fulfill their potential basically on tour? And my opinion is he is a what if player. And that's not to slight him. It's actually a compliment. He's won the US Open. He was in the top 3. He's beaten all the big 3 multiple times on their, different surfaces. And he's still a what if player. That's how much respect I have for Dominic Thiem. And that's how good I think he was and maybe can still be. But back in, and I'll show the stats or show his career arc, but back in 2019, 2020, in my opinion, he was the best player on hard court in the world. And that's crazy because he was always the clay court prince. He was always the next best, the next Nadal on clay. But obviously he was a beast on clay, but he became a beast on hard court as well. And there was times there where you felt like, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, they were fading, and Dominic Thiem, his time was even delayed because of their dominance, I feel like. And then once they would have finished, it really would have been Dominic Thiem's time to shine a bit. And it would have been really interesting to see him at his peak versus Alcaraz and Sinner coming up. But we never got that because he got injured. So if you just look at the chart here, this is the Wikipedia that I always go back to. You see his career arc, basically 10 years if he does end up finishing here in 2024. At the majors, he, obviously made this, he became in the 2016, he was semifinals of French Open, semifinals in 2017, final in 2018. Never could do it on grass really. And, struggled in other majors outside of the French Open. But 2020, he comes in after playing amazing. So in 2020, he makes the final of the French Open after winning Indian Wells on hard court. Has a couple bad results here. Plays amazingly at the ATP finals in 2019 and again in 2020. Makes the final of the Australian Open. Arguably could have, should have won that one. He was up on Djokovic. Couldn't get it done though. Then COVID hits, takes away a lot of the season, and he ends up playing the US Open, winning it, beating Zverev in the final in 5 sets. Kind of, getting one of the major things that you could ever want as a tennis player, a major title. And after that, he had a bit of, he played an amazing end of that year. And then he had a bit of a dip in form at the beginning of 2021, and then he got injured. But he's had dips before. You can see he's been to the finals, had dips, come back, played amazing. Maybe he actually said he lost a bit of motivation here after grinding so hard for so long to get that major title. And COVID was weird too. The shutdown was weird there. But then he got injured. Misses Wimbledon, US Open, Australian Open, comes back for the French Open, loses in the first round, misses Wimbledon. First round, second round, first round. 4 major finals, loses to Nadal, 2018, loses to Nadal, 2019, both at the French, loses to Djokovic, 2020, beats Zverev, 2020. So you can see there that when he gets injured, it's just flatline as far as results at majors. So that is my what if. What if he didn't, mind you, if we look at, I believe he was 20 years old in 2014. So he was like 26 in 2020, 27 when he gets injured in 2021. In today's standard, when guys have played amazingly into 33, 34, he's got so much time left at that point to be at his top level as the big 3 fade out, to win more majors and get to world number 1. I've said on Twitter today, I believe if he never got injured, he would have won at least 3 majors, and I think he would have been number 1 in the world. He was unbelievable. He had defined his hard court game, and he had really become an, outside of clay, just an unbelievable player to play. He wasn't too reliant on any shot. He was a super good athlete, but as others have pointed out, he did play a ton. He worked super hard. He played with such heavy spin, forehand and backhand, and maybe that's what made his wrist get injured, just the pushing it too hard. But every pro player trains like a monster. A lot of players have huge topspin. You have Rafa. You're going to say he worked that much harder or was that much harder on his body than Rafa or Djokovic or Federer or any of these other guys. Anyways, it's just unfortunate. I call it a freak accident, the wrist, and that really flatlined his career after he was basically at his peak. So, yes, to me, he's a what-if player and still has arguably a Hall of Fame career. He's on the list of people who have won a major. The list is not that long, and it's pretty incredible. Let's take a look, and I will do another video that's showing some video from his best matches on the ATP Tour, but some of the three highlights of his career that I think of personally when I think of him are, I got to throw another one up here actually, are to start the Indian Wells final 2019. He beats Roger Federer on hard court and really announces himself as a hard court player, not just a clay court player. That was an unbelievable match. Beat Federer. I saw him the week after that in Miami at the tournament, and I talked to him about that match. And you could just tell he was on the incline. He was with Nicolas Massou, with his coach there, brand new, and they changed some things in his game, and he started to go crazy. 2019 French Open, he beats Djokovic after Djokovic was playing awesome. He beats him over like 3 days because of the weather. Huge win for him. Makes the final of the French Open. Really, that was one of the only losses Djokovic had in a major for like a while outside of injury for him, was the Dominic Thiem. That was incredible. And then I am trying to pull up here another match that probably my favorite moment, him playing Nick Kyrgios 2021 Australian Open. 5-set match, loses the first 2 sets to Kyrgios in front of the Australian crowd, and then comes all the way back, marches all the way back, and wins with one of the most badass backhand down the line winners, which is just absolutely vintage Thiem. Just crushing it, turns around and points to his box like this, and just such an epic moment. To me, that was just so cool. And to talk about the backhand, his backhand is one of the, it's right up there with anyone's single-handed backhand in the world. A lot of people would put probably Stan Wawrinka as maybe the best one-handed backhand, maybe the most iconic. And I would say that's probably true because I think Thiem had a better forehand than Wawrinka did. And, there was, Wawrinka was maybe a bit more reliant on his backhand than Thiem is, or was, or is. But when he would go for it, the way he would train to slap it, open stance down the line, Thiem had the open stance sliding back at one-handed backhand that's Wawrinka didn't really have. He kind of invented that shot. That's just, if you've ever played tennis with a one-handed backhand, you know how crazy it is to hit that shot. And he basically patented that. So an unbelievable player, great guy. I'm going to post the video on here, but there's a video of me talking to him and asking the question, is he back in 2022 in Gstaad there in Switzerland? He was back on tour, but he hasn't gotten back to the level that he wants to be at, and that's why he's retiring. So Dominic Thiem, we salute you. Thank you for the memories. Hate to see you go. And my personal selfish wish is that Thiem will find his level again somehow, find out a way for his wrist to allow him to play at that level, and just start playing amazing here in 2024 and call off the retirement party and say, go Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not going anywhere, and just keep playing and getting to a great level again. That is my wish, and I'm sending that out to the tennis gods. So appreciate you, Dominic Thiem. That's a review of a reaction to his retirement announcement. What do you guys think? Leave your respects below. What's your thoughts on his career? What is he a what-if player? I think he is, because he could have done so much more because he was just that good. That's all. It's been an amazing career. Still not to take anything away, but that's just what I think. That's my reaction. Leave your thoughts below, and we'll see you next time here on The Slice.